It's a sunny winter's afternoon here in Tassie, and I've come to pick a few mandarins off this tree. And I thought I'd have a chat with you about some of our fruit trees, the citrus in particular, but we'll also talk about a few other trees as well. Now, as you can see, there's a nice lot of mandarins on this tree, and I'm counting these as a real success because, as you can see, there's a lot here and they're actually really juicy and tasty. And with citrus in Tasmania, that is often a little bit of a challenge. I've had the problem with a lot of citrus that instead of being juicy, they're dry. So we'll go through a few of them and talk about which ones have done well and which ones haven't. Now, this is a Japanese seedless mandarin. I don't really remember the variety. I made a video when I planted this tree, I think it's around 4 years or so ago now. And so maybe I mentioned it in that video. I'll put a link to it if you want to have a look. Of course, it's always good to clip mandarins rather than pull them. If you, oops, dropped that one. If you pull them, you find that it damages them and they need to be eaten straight away because they're very soft skinned and they're really tasty. They're probably a bit small. They would probably be bigger if I had spent the time to thin them, but I didn't. And let's face it, I never do get to thinning fruit. But this is the first really big crop we've had off them. Look, there's quite a few on the tree still, and we have picked lots already. So, really good crop here. This little tree next to it is an imperial, and very small fruit. It's not quite ripe yet and all ready to pick, but it is juicy, and that's a good thing. I'm not happy with the size, of course, but I'm hoping that in future years, as the tree gets bigger and I feed it more, that we'll actually get some better size of it. What I'm really happy about is the fact that it is juicy. And so I believe it will eventually be a success. It's worth noting that I have planted at least 2 mandarins previously, and they were both failures. So these are the first 2 mandarins that I have got to fruit successfully, and I'm really happy about that. I believe that's largely due to the shelter that they have here from the fence, and also the constant fertilizer from the hens underneath. Over in this corner, I've got a tangelo. I planted it at the same time as I planted the mandarin trees, and it's absolutely loaded too. And I have tasted them even though they're not quite ripe yet. And these are juicy. They're not yet sweet, but as you see, most of them still have a little bit of green on them. Another 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 at the most, and these will be picking. They'll be really nice and really good to get this crop. This tree's had maybe a couple of fruit previously, but never had a crop like this before, like the mandarins. So it's really showing to be successful, and I'm looking forward to future years of good production from it. Now, while I'm in this region, I know that many of you will want to have a look at my avocado trees, which I planted so many years ago. Now, I'm somewhat ashamed to show you these avocado trees after showing you Charlie's trees there in a video a couple of months ago. It's so many years now, I think 4 or 5 years at least, since I planted these avocado trees. And all I can actually say about them is that they're still alive. They haven't really grown, they have just survived. Now, part of that may be that I haven't given them enough sun. Maybe it's other circumstances and not the conditions in the soil or fertilizer. Something hasn't been right. But there's an interesting thing I want to show you here. I'll bring the camera in so you can have a better look. I have here this one tree which I actually planted from seed. Well, I actually got the seed from the compost heap, and it's been in here maybe 18 months, I think at the most. Yeah, probably 18 months, I would say. And look, see how high it is already. It's almost as tall as me. Actually, it probably was taller, but we've had some strong winds and it's been bashed around and it's broken the top out of it, which is a bit of a shame. And that's a seedling, and it's grown just so fast in comparison to the others. I mean, when you compare it to these grafted trees, which have just sat there and done nothing, and then this one, which is just jumped out of the ground. So my thought is maybe that I will do some grafting with this in the way that Charlie has done grafting with his avocado trees, and that seedlings may be the way to go, to plant the seeds, get it established in your own soil, and then to actually graft onto it. So moving forward, I think I will probably take this away and change this structure here. It's not going to happen quickly, probably towards spring that I'll get around to it. Put some individual shelters around the avocados, and I probably will plant in here a couple of bottle brush trees, which Charlie uses for the purpose not only of providing shelter because they're a quick growing Australian native, but also to encourage the bees to get fertilisation for the avocados. So that's a plan going forward. Probably make a video when I come to do that. Next to the mandarin here, we've got the grapefruit tree, and you can see how big it has become. It featured in probably an early video which I did on citrus early in the days of this channel, and look, it's got fruit of all sizes and stages on it, from young ones through to fruit ready to use, and any time of the year that I want fruit I can come and pick here. For those that may be interested, this is a weenie, but it's juicy fruit, absolutely successful. Now next to it we have a Tahitian lime. And again, the Tahitian lime is a total success. It's just got so much fruit on it. It comes to a reasonable size, though there are small ones as well, but it crops over 2 to 3 months over winter. And there's so many limes. We give them to everyone that we can give them to, that will take them, use as many as we can. It's not entirely happy, as you can see from the leaf. There's mottling in the leaf, so I need to address something in terms of deficiency with it, and I will have a think about that and then do something with it. But in terms of growth, in terms of crop and fruit quality, it is absolutely perfect. Now the next citrus around the corner here isn't quite as good. This tree is a navel orange, and while it looks quite healthy in terms of leaf colour and it's got plenty of fruit on it, so far we've had the problem of a dry fruit, thick-skinned and dry. Now, if anyone has any suggestions in overcoming that, I'd love to hear. I've read a few things and tried a couple, but so far have not succeeded. I'm hoping as it becomes more mature and gets a bigger root system, that it will overcome it, because I would really love some juicy navel oranges. It's got promise, but dryness. It's not only this tree, but also the next tree has the same problem. This tree is, well, I bought it as a tangelo, and I believe it is a type of tangelo, but not the type that you normally buy in shops, the nice loose skin type, which is the other one that I've got down there. This is much more like an orange, and it would make a nice juicing orange, except that it has the problem of dryness. Now, the ridgy skin, which usually means it's too thick, it's been cropping for a few years, and I have not been able to overcome that dry, thicker skinned issue. I don't know, I'll give it a couple more years. I start to sort of run out of patience, but as I said, if anyone's got any ideas, love to hear. How do you overcome dryness in citrus? Moving on to lemons. As you can see, we have lots of lemons. We have 2 Meyer lemon trees, and they're both absolutely loaded. The other tree, thankfully, is behind the camera, is smaller. We're always giving away lemons to all our friends, everybody that visits. Would you like some lemons? We use quite a few, but there's still continual supply of lemons. I mean, we'll use probably more in summer on nice hot days for drinks, but cropping really well. This has been pruned a couple of times. It's still getting a bit leggy, but really no problem with lemons. They just do fantastically well with that shelter. Some warm sun coming against it and plenty of fertilisation. Here, of course, I'm not in the chook yard, which is the chooks fertilise down there, but here I have to come with some blood and bone, ideally about 4 times a year, and give them a good feed. Now, next to it, I've got a lemonade. The lemonade tree is growing fine. Looks a bit strange at the moment because we had to cut it back because it was getting overrun by a grapevine and other vines, and so we had to do some pruning there, but it'll recover from that. Plenty of fruit coming. Occasionally it is dry, but it generally is okay. If you get them at the right stage, which is about this stage, they're a nice juicy fruit, make a nice drink. And some good sized ones up there coming. So lemonade is generally a success as well. So moving on now from citrus, we'll go to this next plant, and this is a tamarillo tree. Now, this was much bigger. We've had lots of fruit off it. It has to be covered because of frost to protect it. The cover at the moment is not looking good because it's been beaten up by some of the strong winds that we've had. And it's on the list of jobs to be done in terms of repair. This is quite an old tamarillo tree. I planted this not long after we built the house, so we're probably going back at least 16 years old now. And it's produced lots of fruit over the years. As I said, it's been really big, but it was getting leggy, dropping back in its fruiting, so we decided to give it some extreme pruning, cut it back really hard, and we've got these nice young shoots coming out, including coming out down low here on the trunk, which will give nice new branches. This piece looks to be dead, so I'll take that off soon, and hopefully it gives it some new life. I've never personally grown a tamarillo tree to this age before. In the climates that I have lived previously, tamarillo trees would generally only survive about 3 or 4 years, but this is doing really well, and I'll be interested to see how it goes in terms of fruit. Now, the last fruit tree I wanted to talk about was this little cherry guava. I planted it a few years ago. I actually grew the plant from seed myself, and it was only a small tree when I put it in. It grew up actually quite well, but and then it had a bad start because something killed it up at the bottom, and it died. I thought, oh, it's died, but there was one shoot came out and it's recovered from that. So there's a little bit of damage around here, but this is actually recovering into a nice little tree. There's quite some good strong shoots coming up, so I'm quite happy with it now. We have had a little bit of fruit off it already. There's a lot more fruit coming around here on the back side. So yeah, I think it's going to be a little successful tree. These don't grow very big, they're only a small tree, a bush. Their fruit is a nice red, small cherry size guava. Unusual flavour if you're not used to it, but if you have tasted it and like it, it's really good. Not an easy thing to get in Tasmania. They don't like you bringing seeds in anymore. So it's a matter of finding somebody who's got one that you can get some seed from, or try growing from a cutting and have a go. There was one of these in the Royal Botanic Gardens in Hobart. So they'll handle frost. They do like some protection the way I have it here, but if you can get hold of it in Tasmania, certainly have a go at a cherry guava. While it is sunny in the day, this week we have had some really cold weather with really frosty mornings, and the frost in the shade actually lasting 24 hours a day. So there's been continuous frost in the shade for around about 5 days now. So it might be sunny, but it's still pretty cool. To finish up, I wanted to leave fruit trees and talk about ornamental trees in a garden. When I planted this garden, or started planting, and first came here before I built the house, I put in these 3 oak trees and a cypress pine. Now, I don't really know what variety of cypress it was, but being an evergreen tree planted on the north side, which is the sun side of our house, it wasn't really an ideal thing to do. Now, over the last couple of years, we have begun to question whether we should cut it down. And this year we made the decision that it was time for it to go. We needed to get more sun in. It was only going to get bigger every year and become more of a problem. So got in on a day where there was no wind, brought it from the top down, taking the branches off and then bringing the trunk down separately, and cleared it right away. Now, to replace it, I found in the chook yard a couple of seedling birches. I suspect that they have actually come from these silver birches that I've got here, that's where the seed has come from, that it's blown across. So I got in and dug those out. Now, one was in a really difficult spot, the other was much easier, but I managed to get them both out and planted those where we took the cypress away. So I believe these birches will be much better here. They will allow for some winter sun to come through in the garden and really be beneficial for the garden. We'll probably get less moss growing in the lawn, which is a problem there at the moment because of the amount of shade that we've had from this tree. This will be a nice balance with the oaks in the middle and the birches each side. So I think that's going to be a big improvement for the garden in the future. So that's all for this video. I'll probably be back within a couple of weeks with another video having a look at just what's happening in the veggie garden, or not really this time of the year. It'll be pretty much in the middle of winter by then, and you'll get a good look at the low time for us in the garden.